This is May 2020, but we're going to take you back to a show that we shot in March. This is Crime Watch. Hello and welcome to Crime Watch. I'm Jane Cameron with Sergeant Mario Escamilla of the Buena Police Department. Yes, COVID precautions are still in place. That's why we're really far from each other and we've got our masks, but we're in the back of the Buena Park Police Department station lot. There are still COVID protections, but we're here to bring another show of Crime Watch to you. In fact, Sergeant Escamilla, can you tell me what's going on with the Buena Park Police Department while all of these precautions are taking place?
Yeah, we're still trying to prevent the spread of the COVID-19 virus. So we're still exercising all those extra precautions, such as social distancing, continuing to practice good hygiene, washing our hands, wearing masks when they go out of their vehicles and into calls in the general public to protect themselves and to protect others.
Now we know that it's nice to get a little bit of a distraction away from COVID-19 and everything that's going on, because it can certainly overwhelm our lives if it hasn't already. I know that the Buena Park Police Department is doing these special segments for kids, but also for adults, that is just highlighting some of the activities that happen in the police department on a normal basis.
Yeah, that's correct. We're continuing with our Chronicles episodes or segments, reading to children, trying to engage them. We understand that, a lot of our children, a lot of our family are stuck at home, so we're just trying to entertain, trying to do our part. At the same time, we'd like to educate the public on our special details that we have at this department. Also with that, we like to just, allow all of our officers to introduce themselves to the public. That doesn't happen very often, even with we have events out in the public. And under these circumstances, we're able to go into people's homes through our social media platforms and just get to know and interact with our public, because we're able to respond to some of their questions that they have, and they have really good questions.
You'll also find this quite interesting, that we actually shot a Crime Watch segment that was ready to go on the TV, and then COVID happened. And so we made a special show about the COVID activities and what we're doing in the community and the police department, but we still have that show from March in the can. So as another distraction from everything that's going on, we're actually going to now play the segments that we shot in March. Even though you're seeing them in May, it was before all the COVID-19 precautions were taking place, so you're not going to see social distancing, you're not going to see masks, but you're going to see what the Buena Park Police Department actually does on a normal basis in the community to keep you safe. So let's take a look now.
Canine available for our vehicle search. Canine available for our vehicle search.
Confirm. K2. K2 copy from the north end.
Hello and welcome to Crime Watch. I'm Jane Cameron with Sergeant Mario Escamilla of the Buena Park Police Department. Explain to us what's going on behind us.
So we're looking at a vehicle stop, and the gentleman who was the sole occupant of the vehicle was seen speeding by the officer. What attracted the officer's attention was the officer was driving behind him, and the gentleman still continued to speed down Crescent.
That's not good.
No.
Now, I noticed that they're searching the car. There's got to be a good reason for that.
Yeah, typically there's several reasons why officers usually or generally search vehicles. In this circumstance here, the gentleman who says he's the owner of the vehicle is on probation, so the corporal here is conducting a compliance check.
If the officer finds something, what is the process since the driver is on probation?
Well, it wouldn't be too much difference in terms of if there's anything. When you say fine stuff, I'm assuming it's your
Illegal stuff, yeah.
So if the officer or any officer finds something illegal, they treat it as such. Whether what kind of classification the crime is going to be, whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony, the process is slightly different. But ultimately, if it is a crime, they'll be transported to jail and processed.
Does it make a difference that he's on probation?
It can, not necessarily for the officers per se, but I mean, it may make a difference later on during the court proceedings. It could make a difference during the investigation, depending on the type of probation, because there are different types of probation, whether or not their probation or parole officer, depending on the circumstances, want to violate their terms of conditions of probation or parole.
With something like this, does the driver understand that when they're on probation that they can have the search of the vehicle?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So typically, just because an individual is on probation doesn't necessarily mean that they're subject to search and seizure, doesn't necessarily mean that they forfeit their rights. But under this circumstances, obviously, he is subject to search and seizure. And when people are on either probation or parole and subject to search and seizure, they are given their rights. They know their terms and conditions. Either they're presented to them with the documentation or in court verbally, so they are aware.
Just something about this, the techniques. When the officer is searching the car, there's another officer that is actually watching the driver. So this isn't a one officer operation, it's a minimum of 2 or 3.
Typically, yes, depending on how many occupants. As we can see here, this is what we'd say 1.5 because of the dog. But yeah, this Officer Guzman here is watching the individual for Corporal Davenport, and she is acting as a cover officer. Her job is going to be to make sure that Corporal Davenport is safe while he's conducting the investigation.
You are watching a pre-recorded show from March before all the COVID precautions take place. Sergeant, there's a lot of new officers that are on the department now.
Yeah, that's correct. We have essentially a very young department right now, and Officer Guzman here is among one of the newest. She's been on her own for about 5 to 6 months, and she's actually doing a really good job on it.
On camera, he says you're doing a really good job. Officer Guzman, did you come from another department, or is this the first department as an officer?
No, I applied to Buena Park as a recruit, so as a civilian, and then Buena Park took me into the academy, and I started here. So.
Why did you want to be a police officer?
Oh, well, that's a loaded question. I mean, my background and everything, I've seen a lot, I've gone through a lot, so I just wanted to put people away for a long time, people that deserve it, and I wanted to keep good people safe, and so, yeah, that's why.
So, starting out on the streets, whether it's Buena Park or another city, what is it like to finally be a police officer and go out and try to make a difference in the community?
You know, every time I'm out here, I think about how grateful I am to be out here. I love my job. I love the people I work with. It's amazing here. Everyone's great. Everyone's nice to me, very helpful, and I love it. I love what I do. I love the freedom, and I love helping people when I can. So I'm very grateful to be here, very happy to be here. So I love it.
It's not always dealing with the bad people and the people that are hurting others. There's a good side as well to being a police officer.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the majority of things we deal with is with the bad people. So, but I mean, you get used to it. So.
But you're helping the innocent people though too, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
That's a lot for a department to take on, a lot of new officers and younger officers, but so far it seems like they're all doing a good job, including Officer Guzman.
Oh, definitely. And she's being very modest. and he may not like us, but he was one of her FTOs, field training officers, so he actually gets to see firsthand, how far she's come and all the progress she's made thus far. She's done a really good job. She's one of our best newer officers out here, legitimately.
AAA S10 pickup truck with a vehicle plate of 7 Echo 63885. Repeating a brown 2003 Chevrolet S10 pickup truck. Vehicle plate 7 Echo 63885. Vehicle did have a camper shell on it. Suspect drives a male Hispanic, 45 years of age, bald, 6 foot, wearing a black sneak-on jacket. Weapon used was coarse, and the loss was tools. Page 11 commercial precision 32 control.
Zero 60 years, subject last Cherokee, Adrian Raphael is clear valid.
Corporal Davenport, at the last stop, we talked a little bit about the FTO or Field Training Officer Program. Explain to me exactly what it is, because it seems like it really shapes the officers to be out in the field.
Yeah, it's there's the officers that get off out of the academy. They go through a 4 phase process through the FTO program, starting with phase 1 to phase 4, and then they have a ghost phase. The ghost phase is typically 2 weeks long. So at phase 1, that's basically like kind of baby steps, depending on their knowledge, their street knowledge, if they've had any prior experiences or anything like that on the street. So they're kind of being walked through and shown how to do traffic stops and handle calls for service and things of that nature. And then it kind of progresses from that point forward.
Is it difficult?
It can be. It's challenging, especially with newer officers that have no experience, any experience. So, no field experience, no law enforcement background or anything like that. It's kind of like they just have the academy, which just is a basis for what we do. But your real training is, to be honest with you, is the field work that we do out here every day.
What about officers who come from other departments? Is the FTO program easier for them?
I wouldn't say it's easier. I say they have a little bit, they're ahead of the game a little bit, depending on their level of experience. I think most challenging for some of the people that are lateraling from other departments is just the geography of the city and being able to navigate from call to call. I think that's typically the most challenging aspect of that in our city.
When you have someone who's never been an officer and they're in the FTO program, what seems to be kind of like the general most difficult challenge that they have?
Everybody's different. I would say commonly the challenges that we have with them is report writing is a big issue. Being able to document what we're doing, why we're doing it, and be able to articulate why we're doing things in a report. Navigating through the city as well. That's always challenging for them. And then communication with just being able to differentiate, a criminal and how to communicate with those, with them, and then as well as the average citizen that we come in contact with on calls for service and things of that.
Are you a little bit more at risk when you're with another officer has less knowledge and experience than you?
I wouldn't say at risk. You're kind of more liable, I guess. I mean, you have to watch out for what they're doing as well as being able to watch out for your own surroundings and making sure they're safe as well as I'm being safe. And then also with that being a teacher, teaching them the right way to do things and that kind of thing. I wouldn't say it's more dangerous than me being by myself.
It's just another ball that you have to juggle.
It's just exactly. You hit the nail on the head right there.
What do you want when the officer that you're training gets out of the FTO program? What are you expecting them to be?
It's a learning process, and once they're out of the FTO program, the training doesn't stop. Learning doesn't stop. We're constantly learning. I have 15 years on the job, and I'm still learning. I mean, I don't know everything there is to know. Laws change, different things happen. So it's a revolving door, so to speak. I mean, you're constantly training and constantly keeping up to date. And with newer officers getting off the FTO program, it's even more so with them. And they just continue to learn, ask questions, and that's what I expect, is that they ask questions of more senior officers that have been on the job for longer, to make sure they're doing things right and make sure they're being safe about it, more importantly.
Sergeant, I would think that choosing the right FTO officers is vitally important to the department being a strong department.
Yeah, and it's not just the actual whether or not they're capable of being a field training officer. It's at what stage in the game are they going to be, most beneficial to the person learning, to the trainee. Corporal Davenport here is one of our premier third phase FTOs, because that is one of the most difficult stages in the FTO program, because he's essentially getting everything they learned from the first phase, second phase, and building it up to that final stage to prepare them for that fourth phase, where they're actually doing stuff on their own with very little assistance. And then also with that, the transition period after the field training program, Corporal Davenport, he's quite good at this, as actually transitioning from coach, almost like a boss and supervisor, to a mentor and someone that they actually look up to and try to be like.
Do officers fail the FTO program?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes, because the job's not for everybody. And at the end of the day, we don't want to get hurt. And most importantly, we don't want the person who's not really capable or not really suited to do the job to get hurt as well. And with that, we don't want the citizens that we're serving to get injured as well, because it can happen.
You are watching a pre-recorded show from March, before all the COVID precautions take place. Tell the viewers what type of call you responded to here.
So here we were dispatched, or the units were dispatched to a panic alarm here at a residence.
So there are alarm systems that the police department monitors, or they get phone calls from alarm companies?
So the police department doesn't monitor the actual alarm system. It's going to be an alarm company who actually does the monitoring, and they in turn call the police department and report what type of alarm they're receiving, whether it's a burglary alarm, a panic alarm, or a fire alarm. We wouldn't get dispatched to a fire alarm, obviously, but those are the different types of alarms.
While responding here, there was something on the radio about the owner wanted to cancel. And off camera, you said that no, they think they can cancel, but we still have to respond. What was that about?
Sure. So the actual panic alarm in and of itself, that's indicating that someone is in distress at the residence. That's why it's called a panic alarm. And an alarm like that, they're not allowed to cancel. We still have to respond, because someone can easily be posing as a homeowner and saying that everything's fine, so forth and so on, even if they have the code. Same is true for an actual robbery alarm for a business as well. We get robbery alarms, or silent robbery alarms, and sometimes the business owners would try to cancel, and we're not allowed to cancel for the same reason.
So officers responded to this. Do you have to check the house because of the alarm, or is it okay to meet the owner at their front door?
No, we just go and speak to the homeowner or the occupant and verify that they actually live there or belong there. Just by basic fundamental questions, we could determine. We're not privy to go inside unless we have a reason to. If there's essentially exigent circumstances to go inside, if we didn't feel that they were honest about them belonging at the residence, if we determined that they weren't the homeowners, or we thought that there was something suspicious where we needed to further investigate.
How did they respond?
They were asking us who we were, asking us our names, so forth and so on, and we were just letting them know that we were with the police department. It was very evident that they belonged there. It was actually an elderly male who resided there.
So he was being cautious as well, which is great.
That is correct.
We've been watching a segment that we pre-taped in March. Now we're bringing you back to the present when COVID-19 precautions are still being in place. What's going on now with the community and all the precautions?
Well, quite honestly, I think the community's really done their part, specifically in Buena Park. I think everyone can tell that when they're going out in the general public to the stores to get their essential items necessary, that I would say probably about 95% of the population here in Buena Park are doing their due diligence, wearing their masks, exercising the social distancing. Of course, the Buena Park Police Department just implemented their ordinance for everyone to wear a mask when they're in public. Obviously, we're here at the police department. We're exercising social distancing. We're out. We're out here in the fresh air. But the thing is we're asking the public with that ordinance to be socially responsible. We're asking for their voluntary compliance, and it's more so when they're in the general public. We don't expect people to be wearing a mask, nor should they, unless they choose to wear a mask when they're in their backyard. If they're on their private property and they choose not to, that's their decision. I think this is more so, actually I know this is more so for when they're going out into the public and getting next to people, and it's just an extra layer of precaution for them.
Because if we're all on the same page, we're going to fight this.
Correct.
So it makes perfect sense. If you don't, you need to make sure that you follow the Buena Park Police Department on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Not only are there the Cowboy SWAT chronicles that keep going on, but there's also information about what's going on in the Buena Park community. What suspects are they looking for, or who have been captured? There's also traffic alerts when intersections are shut down, because some of you still have to drive to locations. All that information is important, and you see it on the social media platform that the Buena Park Police Department is very good about updating at a moment's notice. If you have any questions about today's show, you can call the Buena Park Police Department at 562-3901. Along with Sergeant Mario Escamilla of the Buena Park Police Department, I'm Jane Cameron. Thanks for watching.